We continue our design and sustainability series with a conversation with ahanui. Did I do it well?
No, but that's okay. It's you have to pronounce everything, so it's ahanui.
Okay, ahanui,
Perfect.
Communication Manager at the USA Green Building Council. And we're going to talk about education and sustainability and the tremendous work that DC Green Building Council does, and the work that Anna does with her own nonprofit. Anna is a marketing professional at the USA Green Building Council, where she manages the projects and curates the council digital asset collections, and is an experienced sustainability educator with a strong focus in the use of technology to raise awareness about the importance of the environment. She is a consummate conservationist and a self-defined nature nerd, and is the co-founder of local nonprofit Capital Nature, and she's a certified master naturalist in Virginia, committed to connecting people to the nature in the DC region. Thank you, Anna, for joining us. Let's start with the questions.
Let's go for it.
Okay, why did you swap Hawaii for Virginia?
I get that question a lot, actually. I'm a military brat. My father is from Hawaii. He is ethnically Hawaiian and Japanese. But when I was applying for colleges in Hawaii, I actually applied to a lot of East Coast schools and ended up going to Catholic University of America in DC. So that's what brought me to DC. I know we have a couple alums, I heard. I was so excited about that. Go Cardinals. So yeah, that's what brought me to the DC area.
Very well. What should we know about you that I didn't say in your presentation?
I like to talk about my three favorite words. They are wonder, joy, and biophilia. And we'll talk about biophilia a little bit more. I'm pretty sure most people on this call know what biophilia is, but those are my favorite things. I am, like you said, a nature nerd, a nature photographer. I just love connecting people to nature, and I like using the built environment as a teaching tool. And one of the greatest sort of parts of my job at the US Green Building Council is of our LEED Platinum headquarters in Washington, DC, I have given over 900 tours to 14,000 people. So I've been able to kind of show that many people examples of good design, and even teach them about some of the concepts of sustainability and biophilia.
Excellent. The USA Green Building Council started back in 1993. And in these 20 years of work, it has built an international network of green building and sustainability. Where does the USA Green Building Council stand right now? What are the current goals of the organization?
Well, right now, sort of our mission and mission is green buildings for everyone within a generation. That's sort of it simply. We consider ourselves consensus builders, community conveners. We have this global community of designers like yourselves, but engineers, insurance people, product manufacturers. We bring all these people together to create this whole green building system. And so that's really our focus right now. And one thing that I've really enjoyed in my 18 years at US Green Building Council is that we've expanded beyond buildings. Like, we're not even just doing buildings anymore. We're doing cities and communities. We're certifying parking garages. We're certifying business portfolios, green business portfolios. So, I mean, we've really expanded. And so that's one of the things that I'm actually proud to say as a veteran. I am employee 22. I started in 2003 at US Green Building Council, and we currently have about 260 people on staff now. So I got in really at the bottom, and have just really watched the organization grow and expand our reach. And I'm really proud of that.
In your current role, how do you engage stakeholders and communities?
Sure. So I've actually worn a couple different hats in my time at US Green Building Council. I started off managing the LEED workshops. If you're familiar with LEED, LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. It's our tool, it's our rating system. And way back in the day when I started, we were having LEED workshops all around the country and the world. And so I was in charge of that department. Then I moved over into the curriculum development side and started working on the different content that we were offering. And then actually we've moved twice as an organization because we've gotten so big. We actually, our second office, we were only in about a year and a half because we outgrew it so quickly because we hired so many people. And when we moved into our third and final space, we needed more operations and facilities professionals. And even though I didn't have a background in that, because I was a tour guide for our previous office and knew a lot about the systems and what we were doing, they actually had me on the operations and facilities team for a year, which was fun. But I'm a people person. I'm an ambassador. I like to be sort of out in the front. I like to be kind of talking to people. So then they moved me into the marketing department. And so now that I'm in the marketing and communications department, like you said, I manage marketing projects. I manage all of our digital assets. So if there are any of you on this call that have access to beautiful photos of your project, of LEED certified projects, I'm your gal. I have a form. I would love for you to give them to me. We'll love to promote them on social media and in our other projects, media projects and such. So yeah. So and then like I said, so tour guides, digital asset managing, and project management.
Wow, it's a lot of hats.
I know. Sorry.
How does the council engage the communities? What's their outreach efforts to teach and educate sustainability and climate resilience?
You know, we used to have a system that was called the chapters of USGBC, which were individual 501c3s around the country. And then we rebranded those or renamed those to be communities. So the country is divided now up into communities based on geographic location. And each of those communities, they're really charged with being sort of on the ground grassroots organizations that are helping people in that region, whatever their needs are, to have accessibility to the tools and the education that they need. So I would say that our community network is really sort of the first level of us sort of reaching out to everybody.
Excellent. All right. Besides working for the council, you have your own nonprofit, Capital Nature. Can you tell us a little bit about the work you do with Capital Nature?
Absolutely. I mentioned the tours that I gave at U.S. Green Building Council, and one of my favorite concepts, and my third favorite word, biophilia, love of life, love of nature. I was so captivated by the concept of biophilia and how important it is to connect people to nature that I started going to some programs offered by a local group called Biophilic DC. And the Biophilic DC initiative was a group of folks that formed maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and they basically wanted to encourage the DC government to pursue getting added to the Biophilic Cities Network. And so that's a global network of cities that have basically dedicated efforts to connecting their citizens and tenants and the communities to nature through both infrastructure and also through nature. And so I just realized that my passion was connecting people to nature. I just figured that out. And so the co-founder of Biophilic DC and I joined forces 3 years ago to form Capital Nature. And basically our mission is to, we not only offer our own programming to connect people to nature, but we promote many, many different organizations' activities. So we cull the calendars of the Smithsonian, National Geographic, Audubon Naturalist Society, DC Audubon. We go through those every month and we curate for information and events and put that on our calendar so that we're a one-stop shop. So if you're in the DC metro area and you feel like doing some nature, whether that be just going on a hike, planting a tree, pulling invasive plants, you can go to our website and find out all that information. And I'll be, I'm really good. I love dropping links in the chat. So I'll be dropping some links in there so you guys can check out some of those things, but that's what
I love that.
Yeah.
As I told you, so that's excellent. All right, I love the concept of biophilic cities. Could you elaborate more on that? How does a city, how does an administration becomes or turns its city into a biophilic city?
Sure. So what they do is they have an assessment program and they get the different cities to see if they can demonstrate different elements of biophilic activity. And so how they measure those things, they look at what's the infrastructure, what's education look like, because education is connected to what they know that there have been good they've proven test scores for children and such. When they have access to daylight and access to green spaces, they get better scores. Creating healthier cities, stormwater management, you're reducing the impact, cities are being more resilient. I want to definitely put a link to biophilic cities in the chat so you guys can check it out in more detail. But I did want to point out that DC became a biophilic city in 2015, and Arlington County and Reston have also been certified as biophilic cities. So we're sort of like in this nexus. And I wanted to mention that for LEED too. I mean, for all of you in the DC area, you might know that DC is the densest city in the world for LEED certifications. I mean, we blow all other cities out of the water. And so I'll definitely put some links into the chat for that.
Excellent. All right. So you mentioned that the district is one of the densest, or the densest city certified. It's also one of the most demanding regions in terms of design and certifications. and they are trying to really move the needle in terms of sustainability. How does the council, the Green Building Council, interacts with the city for this purpose?
Well, I mean, we have it's internally, we have an advocacy department. So we have folks that are dealing with people on the local, state, and federal level, helping them figure out different incentives that can help promote LEED building. We also have a newer initiative, a new rating system actually, that's called LEED for Cities and Communities. And so this is all about it's a rating system that helps cities assess and look at all their different qualifications isn't really a great word for it, but how they can demonstrate their commitment and what they're doing in terms of performance for green.
Right. In the last 20 years in professional experience, what innovations have appeared that have made LEED certification easier?
One thing about LEED, which I think is commendable, is that it's constantly changing. We're changing with the technology changes. A good example of that would be that, buildings 10 years ago didn't have EV chargers for cars because we weren't even thinking about EV chargers. And so as the different things change in technology and innovation, LEED looks to its membership and does a comment period per all the members have an opportunity to chime in. And that's what's great about us being as conveners, is because all these people with these different expertise, whatever, they can contribute, say hey, USGBC, you really need to change or update this credit because we're too old now. And so I love the fact that we're able to kind of raise the bar each time as the technology changes.
Is there a risk that by extending the demand for LEED certifications, the certifications may become a label and lose their actual value?
I don't think so. I think that we, even though we have the LEED building stock around the world is just a small percentage. There's so much more work to do. It's not like we're dominating the world or anything. I wanted to just tell you a couple little stats about, in terms of numbers. Every day, more than 2.6 million feet is LEED certified each day. I mean, so it's growing and growing and growing. We're in all 50 states. We're in over 180 countries and territories. We have over 52,000 commercial projects, but if you include other rating systems, we have over 106,000 certified projects. So that's still a small, even though those numbers seem impressive, they're so small compared to the global building stock. So all we can do is just help people raise that bar.
Wow. That's a lot. It's exploding. Right. Many experts present a bleak image, stating that we have left the no turning back point in terms of sustainability way back in the 1970s, and that we really need to make a huge effort to mitigate the effects now. Do you think that beyond the personal habits and individual contributions like recycling, etc., the public is aware of what is at stake and the policies that we need?
I think people are becoming more aware. And I think definitely after the Paris Agreement was signed, it's now mainstream media is talking about this. It's not just sort of like in the green, it's not like our little thing that we're doing as green building professionals. It's become more mainstream. It's people are realizing that, what they need to do. Look at people that they want to build homes and places, and building owners want to build places that are sustainable, that are going to last, that are future proof, that are resilient. And so I think everyone knows the value of that. I mean, building owners know the value that if they have an apartment building that's LEED certified, they're going to be able to get more tenants and charge a higher rate because people want to be in a sustainable place. They want to be close to nature. So I think the bar is it's an upward trend in my opinion, definitely.
And from your perspective as an educator, how can you make the public even more aware?
We one of the things that we have at USGBC and where I started at originally was educating people about LEED. And so we have an education department. And so education at USGBC is our platform. And we were developing all this education years ago, and we realized we couldn't do it all ourselves. It's too much. There's so many different constituencies out there that need education. And so we developed an education partner program. And so all these different folks that were delivering great content we partnered with them so that we can offer that on our platform. And so another thing that we've just launched in the last week or so is our Green Careers website. We just realized that like, this is green is the career to be in, you know? And so, and I keep saying I'll put stuff in the chat and I will, I just keep talking. But we just launched this website where people can go based on, it's really nicely cool how they organized it. If you're like still in school and thinking about being a green career, if you're already in your career, mid-career, or if you're thinking about changing a career, that's kind of how they've put everything together. And I just think it's a great resource for folks. So, you know, that's some of the ways that we're reaching out to the community. Also, we just launched a new sort of Green Building 101 course that's going to be really helpful for people, that's free. And I can put a link to that too. And so, you know, we're just doing our best to just kind of get people in the know.
Excellent. I know you're a technology fan, right?
Yeah.
Still design nature nerd.
Yes.
What's your favorite app and your favorite recent innovation for this?
Okay, so how many people on this call like to take pictures of nature with their phone? Anybody? Raise your hand. Anybody? Okay.
Yes, of course.
What if you knew that your picture, if it's a decent picture, could contribute to global scientific research? Would you be like blown away? All right, well, when I learned that, I was blown away a couple of years ago. I learned about this app called iNaturalist. iNaturalist is it's actually a social platform, but it's also a way to learn about nature. Millions of people are using it around the world. And what you do is you go out, let's say you go out in your backyard or go out in your patio, or even maybe if there's a spider on your windowsill in your house, and you take a picture of it and it gets uploaded into this database, and it's a crowdsourced consensus. So at least two other people need to verify, like you don't need to know what it is, you can just put spider, and then there are spider experts all around the world that are going to see that picture because they've set up to be pinged when spider pictures are uploaded, and they're going to be like, someone in Russia is going to be like, oh yep, that's an orb weaver, Anna. And so it's so cool. So you're learning, and then once a couple people, there's a consensus about what the species or individual is, it becomes what's called research grade. And all of that gets funneled into this global database that researchers can go and grab data for different reports and stuff. And so I use iNaturalist every day. I use several apps. There's another cool one called Seek by iNaturalist, SEEK. And literally you don't even have to take a picture. You just hold your camera up over that beetle, and it's going to start, based on artificial intelligence, it's going to start figuring out what beetle family it is, and maybe even what beetle it is. And so
that's like the Terminator eyes, right?
What's that?
Like the Terminator eyes.
Yes, exactly, just like that. And so I use a couple different apps, and I wanted to mention that there is a global, if you're not familiar with citizen science, also known as community science, it's basically when, you know, scientists can't do all the work themselves. They can't gather all the data by themselves. But if you have a bunch of people like us with our phones, we can gather information for them that they can't gather so quickly. And so community science is when you take any sort of topic. It could be water quality, air quality, bugs, bees, plants, invasive management, anything like that, and then use these apps to collect this data. And so there's a global event coming up April 30th to May 3rd, and it's called the City Nature Challenge, and it's a global challenge. And so I am on the DC leadership team for the DC metro area, and I've been on that for about 5 years. We always place in the top 10. This year we have over 400 cities participating in over 43 countries. So if you're like a nature nerd and you want to participate, then I definitely want to see you checking out iNaturalist, starting an account, and uploading stuff to help us out with the City Nature Challenge.
We have a few. I think, Renata, you love nature, right?
Love nature.
All right. So one last question, and we open the floor for questions. What are your goals with Capital Nature in the next 5 years, Master Naturalist Anna?
Sure. For me, it's all about just like I said, connecting people to nature. So I want Capital Nature to be like the known go-to place in this area for anyone to be like, oh, you need to do something, you need to connect to nature this weekend. Oh, you better go to Capital Nature site. I want my business partner and we are just 2 people right now with a couple volunteers. And again, I have a full-time job at US Green Building Council. We're looking for grants and funding. As soon as we do that, as much as I love USGBC, I'm ready to go on to my next chapter with Capital Nature. So I'll continue to do both until we're funded. But but it's all about, I'm also a certified forest therapy guide. And if you guys have never heard of forest bathing or forest therapy, it's based on a Japanese practice called Shinrin-yoku, and it's a restorative, slow nature walk. Very kind of cool. It's not, you're not running around in the forest with your bathing suit. It's a very cool kind of meditative Zen kind of thing. And if anyone is, actually, I wanted to plug this. I help with forest bathing walks at the National Arboretum. And if you've never been to the National Arboretum, you need to go because it's amazing and it's super blooming right now. But my friend Paul, who is a medical doctor at Georgetown, is leading a walk tomorrow from 9 to 11. So if you have time from 9 to 11 tomorrow, I know that their registration, they're looking for some more people to sign up. Definitely check that out. FONA, FONA.org, the Friends of the National Arboretum, they're the ones that host that. And if you want to try out forest bathing, I highly recommend it.
Beautiful. Now we open the floor. We have a question from Federico. When evaluating future changes to LEED,
I'm sorry, actually, is it in the chat?
Yes, it's in the chat.
Okay, go ahead.
When evaluating future changes to LEED, how the cost implications versus benefit is considered as an impact in the marketplace and development?
Oh gosh, how can I answer that? So first of all, I'm gonna back up and say that if there's any question that I can't answer precisely enough to what I think is good, I'm gonna find out the answer and get it to you, just because I'm not in the LEED department and I'm not one of the technical folks. I definitely know, so cost implications for the benefit. I don't want to punt on it, but I know that, when people say, oh, why would, LEED is more expensive, it's not. Like people, when you look at the studies that we've done in the case studies, you can build a non-LEED certified building at the same price as, a LEED certified building. Like it just depends on the market and what materials you use and what professionals and consultants you use and such. It's like that. I don't have a super great answer for that, and I'm so sorry. And I will definitely get an answer and get it to you.
You want to refine the question further, perhaps? Well,
Federico?
Yes, no. I just wanted to understand how the process is, because I understand that building a certified building and a non-certified is pretty much the same. But when you're trying to go higher in the LEED scale, that's when the kind of up price kicks in. And in every iteration of LEED became more restringent, and I just want to understand how the process works, so we can not advocate, not against. Obviously, we are all in favor of LEED, but trying to understand the mindset of how LEED operates. It's I'm interested in.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, Federico. And I'd like to go back to sort of the consensus space with the community. I think some people think that there's a bunch of people sitting in on a room that are deciding what LEED is, and that is not the case at all. With our thousands of members during each of these comment periods through each iteration, that is the opportunity for anyone like yourself to chime in and be like, I don't understand this. Like, why do you do it this way? That's why getting the input, getting the feedback from people is how it grows. And then we do have a team of people that evaluate all those thousands of comments that come in each time to kind of to do that checks and balances and kind of see where we're going to end up on the next version. So I highly encourage you to participate. If the next time we're coming up, we're in V4, right, 4.1 right now, I think right now, but we're constantly, gosh, when I started, I guess it was 1.0 when I started. So we've come quite a long ways. Thank you for your question, Federico.
Okay, we have one question from Paola. Are there parallels between the US Green Building Council and other practices around the world?
Absolutely. There are other rating systems in other countries. There were some before us. There's BREEAM in Britain. Australia has their own rating system. I think, doesn't Spain have their own rating system? I might not.
Yes, they do. Energy efficiency system.
China. I mean, so we're all in this together. It's not like we're competing or anything. We all have the same goal in mind. We all want to promote sustainability and green building and healthy and resilient communities. And so, yeah, we all have similar goals and similar strategies. Yeah, definitely. So we look to the others too. Yeah. And
there's also a big international chapter, right, of the USA Green Building Council.
I'm sorry, say that again.
there is an international chapter of the USA.
There's a World Green Building Council. Absolutely. Yeah. So we're just the US, we're just here. And it's funny, I was just talking to a colleague before this. Our name, we've talked about this sort of in internal all staff meetings, but our name, US Green Building Council, it doesn't really fit anymore. You know, it's like we're kind of global now. And so like, I don't know what's going on and if that's ever going to change, but we talk about it. We're talking about it like, well, we're not really kind of US anymore. We're definitely global, especially being in the over 180 countries and territories.
Especially when you consider that it's an international issue that you cannot limit to national sovereignties.
Absolutely. And I was so glad when we went international, you know, because when we started, it was just here. And then, you know, we started working really closely with Canada and India, and they're like, well, our climate's different and our materials are different. And it just made sense to kind of pivot to whatever's going on regionally and go that global way. And I just think we're so lucky that we did. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are today if we didn't expand globally like that and just let people tweak as needed to the needs of their, you know, their people and their contractors and their building stock.
We have another question from Aura. How can ordinary citizens continue advocating for green building and preserving the environment?
Oh, that's a great question. I think one thing would be to learn more about green building, and you know, we do have credentials. So we have something called we have a LEED accredited professional. Are there any LEED accredited professionals on this call by any chance? Anybody who has been taking the test or anything? Okay, no worries. But we have something that's sort of entry level called the LEED Green Associate, and I've taken that exam. I am not a practitioner. I'm not an architect. I'm not an engineer. I'm not doing specs. I'm not doing drawings. But I have studied to be a LEED Green Associate to just know enough to be dangerous, because I love talking about green building to people. And so I would also joining our local community. So we do have a DC area chapter of USGBC. And so they're constantly having programs about education, tours, green building tours. And you know, obviously after the pandemic, those will get going up again. So I would just educate yourself, and then whatever you're most passionate about, that's what you should share. That's what you should share with others. Like me with a passion with biophilia, that is my love. In fact, I don't know if you guys have heard, some of you may have heard of the biologist E.O. Wilson. He's a famous biologist, and he kind of coined that term biophilia. And he's just this amazing man. He's in his late 80s. And the fact that I got to meet him, he's one of my nature idols, gods, and just follow what you love is what I suggest to share it.
Beautiful. We have time for one more question. If there is anything.
Yeah, from Renata.
Okay, yes. What would you do to promote LEED implementation in Latin American countries?
Oh, this is a great question. So my friend Nicolette, she is in charge of LEED in Latin American countries. And so I can definitely, there is so much activity in Latin America, I can't even tell you. And I know because I said I manage the LEED. I manage our digital asset collection of LEED project photos. I'm constantly getting photos from Latin America, which I love because the pictures are awesome. So I can definitely put you guys in contact with her, because she can connect you to the right people in particular regions. If you're interested in that, if a certain country, we have people all over the world. So we could definitely connect you. It's very robust down there in Latin America, definitely.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Anna.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
An electric interview.
Oh, thank you. And I said I would put all these links in, and thank you to people who have been putting in. I have this document next to me with all these links. I'm just going to put them in an email and send them to Rodrigo, and he can share it with you. I just didn't want to be looking away every time I answered a question. I apologize for that, but this has been a pleasure. I was an honor to be asked. So I really, love talking about USGBC and Capital Nature, and I just hope you guys have a great weekend.
And hopefully,
thank you, Anna.
Hopefully that the interview that was electric, it was low consumption, right?
Absolutely. Good point, Federico. Good point. Well, have a great day, everybody. Like I said, I'm also going to send the email or the thing for my website, capitalnature.org. Sign up for our newsletter if you want to hear about nature stuff going on. I lead forest bathing walks myself. I'm going to be leading some at Brookside Gardens in the next 2 months if you're in the Maryland area. I also am going to be helping out at the Arboretum Arboretum. So I hope they reinstitute, they do full moon forest bathing walks at the Arboretum, which are fantastic. And I think they're going to be starting those back up. And if you check out my website or join my, check out my calendar and see that, I would love to see you on any of those. And please recognize, please introduce yourself and be like, hey, I saw you on that Moya talk.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That's great.
Anna.
Take care.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.